Chapter 4. Where is Lisa? Where can I look for my collar now? Oscar asked himself sadly. Who can I ask next? Feeling very helpless, he trotted through the streets, and before he realized it, he had reached the station again. There, what was that? There was a train standing in the station. Oscar's heart began beating faster. Can the train with the cows in be back again already? He wondered. If it is, then I can ask Lisa whether she has seen the collar. Yes, of course. The collar must have fallen off when I was with the cows, when I tried to get through the bars of the gate. It must still be in the cattle truck, or I'd certainly have found it by now. Oscar ran along the train, from the engine to the last van, and then back to the front again. Everywhere people were getting in and out, and two men were unloading a whole pile of cases and parcels from one van, but there was no sign of a truck with cows in it. This isn't Lisa's train, thought Oscar. It must be another train. I'll ask somebody. Suddenly he heard a gruff voice behind him say, "What does this Dash Hound think he is up to? Who do you belong to now?" Oscar turned round. There stood a man with a smart red cap on his head. "Do you mean me?" asked Oscar. "I'm looking for the cows who got into the train this morning. I can't find them." "You could go on looking a long time," said the man. "The train has gone. The cows won't be coming back until the autumn." "Not until the autumn?" asked Oscar. "Where have they gone?" "To Upchurch," said the man. "Where they are going after that, I don't know. They spend the whole summer in the mountain pastures." "To Upchurch," sighed Oscar. "Can anyone go there by train?" "Yes, so long as you have enough money for your ticket," was the man's reply. "This train is going to Upchurch, and now leave me in peace. The train goes in 5 minutes." "What have you got to do with the train?" asked Oscar. "Do you drive the engine?" "I'm the station master," said the man, and pulled his smart jacket a little straighter. "I see that the trains leave on time." Then he walked on. So that was the station master, the man that all the trains had to obey. That was why he was wearing the big red cap with golden leaves on it. He had golden buttons on his jacket. Too, and they looked almost as fine as the studs on the collar Oscar had lost. Oscar stood there, wondering what to do next. "So they've gone to Upchurch," he thought. "There is nothing else for it. I must go to Upchurch too, and look for the cows. Of course, if anyone knows anything about the collar, Lisa will. Lisa must have seen what happened to it." But how could Oscar get to Upchurch? It must be a terribly long way to walk, or the cows would have gone on foot. By train. Yes, so long as you have enough money for your ticket, the station master had said. Oscar looked unhappily at the railway train that was about to set off for Upchurch. "That's nonsense," he said, and began wagging his tail hard. "Why shouldn't I go too? It won't do anyone any harm, and surely the cows hadn't got any money to buy themselves tickets." For a little while Oscar stood and watched the people carrying their cases past him and getting into the train. Some of them stayed outside and chatted, with others who were looking out of the carriage windows. If I get in from this side, they will see me and chase me out again, said Oscar. I must try from the other side. He slipped through between two coaches and looked up and down the tracks. There was no one anywhere to be seen. In a couple of jumps, Oscar was up. He hurried through an open door into the long carriage and hid under a seat. At first he did not dare move a whisker. Then he looked cautiously around him. This is just like a room or a little house, he said in astonishment. Who would have thought that people could travel in this? A bell rang in the station, and someone called, "Close the doors, please." Then a whistle sounded. A few children came running into the carriage, rushed over to the window, and shouted something out of it. The rattling and jolting began, first gently and then louder and louder, just the way it had been that morning when Oscar had gone off in the cattle truck. Then the children came and sat down on the very seat under which Oscar was hiding. Ow! The Dash Hound yelped suddenly and began barking loudly. One of the children had trodden on his tail. "What's that? What's under there?" The children called to each other. "A dog, a Dash Hound. Who does he belong to?" Oscar trembled all over. Now I'll be found out, he thought, trying to creep even farther into the corner. How silly! I never can keep my bark down. "What are you doing under there? Do come out," cried the children. "We won't do anything to you." Oscar crawled slowly out from under the seat. "Really?" he asked. "You won't tell anyone?" The children laughed. "What is there to tell?" Oscar swallowed in embarrassment. "I've got to get to Upchurch, and I've no money for my ticket," he confessed in a small voice. "What a funny thing," cried a little girl. "A Dash Hound traveling all alone in a train. Where is your master then?" Oscar told them how it had all come about, and how he was now setting out to look for his collar. "I shall have to go to Upchurch first, and then see where Lisa and the other cows have gone for their holidays," he said. At that the children burst out laughing. "The cows haven't gone on holiday," they explained. "They've gone to the mountain pastures, high up in the Alps, so that they will make lots of milk." "Oh, well, to the mountain pastures then," said Oscar. "But I've never been in a train before. I don't even know where I have to get out. Perhaps I'm going to a foreign country and won't ever find my way home again." The children laughed again. "You needn't worry," they said. "This train isn't going to any foreign countries. Upchurch is the last station in this valley. The railway stops there. After that there is nothing but the high mountains, the Alps. So when the train stops and doesn't go on any farther, you get out, and there you are." Suddenly the door at the end of the carriage was opened, and a loud voice called out, "Where is the dog? Where is that Dash Hound? Did a Dash Hound get in here at the last station? Is he here?" "The guard is coming," whispered the children. "Quick, quick!" Oscar felt terribly frightened. He tried to jump straight down under the seat again, but a little girl threw her cardigan over him. The biggest of the boys took his rucksack down from the luggage rack and unbuckled it, and put Oscar inside. "Now keep down and don't make a sound," he said softly, as he lifted the rucksack with the Dash Hound back on to the rack. The next moment the guard appeared beside the children. "Have you seen the Dash Hound?" "Surely you must have seen him," he said, and looked from one to the other. "Oh, are you looking for a dachshund?" asked the children. "Oh, what fun! Shall we help?" They pretended to look for the dachshund. They crawled underneath the seats and climbed up to the luggage racks. "He must have come in here, and I'm going to find him," grumbled the guard. "It simply won't do. Dogs traveling on the train without paying. When I catch him I shall teach him a good lesson." The children searched high and low, right through the carriage, and then sat down in their seats again. "If we haven't found him by now," they said, "then he must have discovered an awfully good hiding place. Mightn't he be in front in the engine?" For a moment all was quiet, and Oscar breathed again in relief. Inch by inch he pushed his nose up out of the rucksack to have a look and see if the man had gone away. In a flash he pulled his head back inside again. The guard had climbed up on the seat, and was just at that moment having a look behind the rucksack. Thank goodness he had not noticed the little dachshund peeping out. Oscar crouched down as quiet as a mouse, hardly daring to breathe. "If he catches me, he'll put me in prison," he thought. "And then what shall I do? I won't be able to jump out of the window there. That's very odd," he heard the guard's voice say at last. "There's nothing here either. Wherever has that dog got to?" Then he slammed the carriage door shut. "He's gone now. We've been lucky again," the big boy said. And lifted his rucksack down from the luggage rack. "Did you see? He jolly nearly found you." Then the train stopped. Oscar tried to jump out of the rucksack, but the boy held him back. "Better stay in there," he said. "The guard is sure to come back." The train moved off again, and the guard passed down the middle of the carriage. Oscar ducked down in the rucksack, and the little girl put her cardigan over it, but the guard only looked at the children's tickets and said, "Woodtown, get out at the next stop." When he had gone, Oscar was allowed to put his head up out of the rucksack again, and he began chatting with the children. They told him where they came from. Their school had been closed down for a week because many of the children had measles, and they had gone to stay with their grandmother and their uncle in Seven Towers. School was to begin again tomorrow. "Here we are," cried the big boy, when the train next stopped. Oscar jumped out of the rucksack. "Now crawl under the seat, right to the back, and don't stick your tail out," said the children. "Then no one can possibly find you." They all wished Oscar a good journey. "Good luck. We hope you will find your collar very soon." Then they jumped out of the train, and Oscar was left alone in the carriage. "I quite forgot to say thank you to the children," he realized suddenly. He would have liked to jump up on the seat and call after them out of the window, but he did not dare to. It was better to stay underneath the seat. How far can it be to Upchurch, he wondered. It will soon be evening. And where can Lisa and the other cows be? Perhaps they are in the mountain pastures already, making lots of milk. Oscar was very tired after all the excitement of the day. He curled up in the farthest corner, put his head down on his paws, and fell asleep. Chapter 5. Oscar's Morning Bath. "Wherever am I?" Oscar asked himself when he woke up the next morning. He was not at home in his warm basket, that was certain. No, he was lying on a hard floor in the middle of a puddle of water, and he was splashed and wet from head to tail. Oscar jumped up. "What's going on? How did I get in here?" Then he remembered that he had been traveling in the train. He must have fallen asleep in the carriage. He was just about to have a look round the carriage when a heavy broom landed with full force right on his nose. This was too much. Oscar burst out barking and shot out from underneath the seat. He shouldn't have done it. The cleaner, who was busy sweeping out the carriage with a broom and water, gave a loud cry and fell over backwards with fright, right into her big bucket. The water splashed in all directions. "Help, help!" she cried over and over again. "A very good morning to you," said Oscar. "I'm extremely sorry." The cleaner did not let him finish speaking. "You miserable beast! You," she shouted. "Just wait. I'll—" She got up, very red in the face, seized the broom, and threatened to give the Dash Hound a thorough thrashing. Oscar hastily crawled back under the seat and looked up at the woman, his eyes wide and innocent. "I've already told you I'm sorry," he said. "Why are you so cross?" The woman paused, put her hands on her hips, and stared at Oscar in astonishment. "You're a funny sort of Dash Hound," she said. "You almost frighten me to death, and then you're surprised I'm angry. Now tell me, how did you get in, and what do you think you're doing here?" "Are you sure you won't fetch the police or the guard?" asked Oscar. "Then put your broom away and sit down, and I'll tell you all about it. It's a sad story." The woman wiped her hands clean on her apron and sat down on a seat. She took some bread and cheese out of a basket. "Well then, what about it?" she asked, and muttered once more, "giving a body such a fright." "First of all I must tell you who I am. I'm called Oscar, and I come from the town of Seven Towers," began Oscar. "It was my birthday yesterday. For my birthday, my Master Willie gave me a lovely collar. And that was how the trouble started." "I don't see that," said the woman, biting into her bread. "A new collar doesn't sound much trouble." "Well, you see, life's like that," answered Oscar. "I went for a walk through the streets with my collar on, and at first all went well, but the big dogs didn't like it, and they ran after me, and I slipped into a cattle truck at the station. Suddenly, the train moved off, and the truck was shut up. I tried to push my way out through the bars of the gate, and I must have lost my collar then. Now I've got to find the cows who were in the truck. One of them is called Lisa, and she was coming here to Upchurch. This is Upchurch, isn't it?" "Yes, this is Upchurch," replied the cleaner. "And yesterday afternoon a train came in with some cattle. I think the cows have gone to the pastures already." Oscar sprang to his feet. "Really," he cried, "which pastures?" "I'm sure I don't know," answered the woman. "What I'm wondering is, what have the cows got to do with your collar? They weren't taking care of it for you, were they?" "No, they weren't," said Oscar, "but Lisa is a friend of mine. She would certainly have watched what went on, and she'll be able to tell me what happened to my collar. I've got to find the collar, or whatever will my Master Willie say. He spent the whole of his savings on it." "Then I'm sure you'll find it again soon. The woman comforted him. "Come and have a bit of bread and cheese now. You can't have had any breakfast." "Actually, I'm not really very fond of cheese, but I am terribly hungry," said Oscar. "I haven't had anything to eat since yesterday morning, and I'm so thirsty I could almost drink all your scrubbing water." The cleaner gave Oscar half her bread and cheese. She filled a cup with coffee from a thermos flask, drank it, and then poured out some for Oscar. Never in his life had Oscar enjoyed his breakfast so much. "Do you know," said the cleaner, "if I were you, I'd go to the station master and ask him. Perhaps someone has found the collar and taken it to him." "For goodness sake," cried Oscar, "not the station master. He's sure to know that I traveled here from Seven Towers without a ticket, if he catches me." "Well, then, you will just have to ask in the village. Someone may know where the cows went yesterday," said the woman. "Now I must get on with my work. Goodbye, Oscar love, and all the best to you. And if ever you come to Upchurch with your master, don't you forget to drop in and see me. Only please don't give me such a fright again. If you do, I really will be after you with my broom." Oscar put his head out of the door and looked cautiously in all directions. There were no guards or station masters to be seen, but there was something else that made his Dachshund heart beat faster. Over on the farthest track there was a train with some reddish-brown cattle trucks. "Thank you very much," Oscar called to the cleaner, then jumped down and ran over to the other train. "This is the same train that I hid in to get away from those horrid dogs," he thought. "My collar must have traveled in here from Seven Towers to Upchurch, and it might still be here now." With one leap, the Dachshund was up and in the train. Then he sniffed all round the truck, but it was no use. There was nothing there but the cow's dirty straw. No, it was no simple matter to find a lost birthday present. Chapter 6. Chris and Mr. Oatmeal. Oscar jumped out of the cattle truck. "I'll have a look at the village of Upchurch," he said. "Perhaps I shall find someone who knows where the cows went yesterday." Keeping well clear of the railway station, he went to the wide road leading up to the village. There, outside an enormous, grand-looking house, stood a milk cart with a white horse between the shafts. "What is this great house?" Oscar asked the horse. "That just shows you don't come from round here, if you don't know that," answered the horse. "This is the hotel where all the townsfolk stay when they come here for the holidays." Oscar stood a long time outside the hotel. Then the big front door opened and a man came out. Oscar gave a start of fright. The man was wearing a red cap on his head. Could this be the station master? No, it couldn't be, for the man picked up a broom and began sweeping the driveway in front of the hotel. As he swept, he whistled a little tune. "Good morning, Mr. Hotel Master, sir," said Oscar. "I'd like to ask you something, please." "He whistles almost like my Master Willie, only not so well," thought Oscar. "If he isn't a station master, then he must be the hotel master. That is why he is wearing that red cap. I'll ask him where the cows have gone." "Good morning, Mr. Hotel Master, sir," said Oscar. "I'd like to ask you something, please." The man turned round in surprise. "Hello, Dash Hound. You gave me quite a start," he said. "And just for your information, I'm not a hotel master. I'm the hall porter, and I'm called Chris. What can I do for you?" "I'm looking for a cow," said Oscar. "She is supposed to have gone to some mountain pastures somewhere. Do you know, by any chance, where she has gone?" "Bless my soul," laughed the man. "I'm not a cow's policeman. I don't know about all the cows in the Alps, but if you have a little patience, perhaps we can find out. First, I must clean up the drive." Oscar lay down in the sun, which had risen high over the mountains, and watched Chris sweeping up all the scraps of paper, empty ice cream tubs, and cigarette ends from the hotel driveway. All at once there came a hooting, and a big red motor car drew up in front of the hotel. Chris stood his broom against a tree, hurried over to the car, and opened the door. A gentleman in +4s got out, followed by a lady and 2 children, a boy and a girl. "Good morning, sir." "Good morning, ma'am," said the porter. "Good morning. Have you any rooms free?" asked the gentleman. "Certainly, sir," answered Chris, and at once began taking the cases out of the car. Oscar came trotting up and watched curiously as the porter carried the cases into the hotel. "How'd I'd love to see what a hotel looks like inside," thought Oscar. "Then I'd at least have something to tell my master Willie when I got home." Oscar slipped through the door behind the porter and found himself in a spacious hall. He had never imagined that there could be anything like it. He could hardly see the walls, for all the big pictures and tall mirrors. An enormous light hung down from the ceiling. The floor was covered from one end to the other with a thick red carpet with flowers and strange birds on it, and in the corners stood huge pots with trees in them, the like of which Oscar had never seen before in his life. A man in his black Sunday best was standing behind a low wooden barrier and welcoming the family who had just arrived. Oscar stared at it all in blank amazement. When he turned back to the porter again, he saw him showing the new visitors through a little door. This was a lift in which people could ride up to the top floors. "Where can they be going? I must go too," thought Oscar. Just as the little door started to close, he slipped into the lift. The door slid shut, and Oscar let out a fearsome yell. "What on earth?" exclaimed the porter, who had just been going to press the button to start the lift. "Oh my goodness, a dachshund!" cried the lady in horror. "He's got his tail caught. What a good thing he cried out." Oscar was still yelling as if he had a knife in his throat. The porter hurriedly opened the door. "You silly little dachshund, what are you doing here?" he scolded. "Oh dear, I'm sure he's broken his tail," said the lady in great concern. "You must fetch the veterinary surgeon at once." "I'll just show you to your rooms first," said the porter. "Then I'll see what is to be done." Oscar whined pitifully. He crawled out of the lift and lay down in a corner of the big hall. "Oh, what will my master Willie say?" he whimpered. "First of all I lose my collar, and now I've broken my tail. What's the good of a dash hound without a tail?" Tears ran down his cheeks and plopped onto the thick carpet. After a little while, the lift door opened again, and Chris came back into the hall with the family. "There he is!" cried the little boy, and they all gathered round the Dachshund, who was lying in the corner and crying. "He must go to the vet, the poor little chap," said the lady. "The dog belongs to the hotel, I suppose." "No," said the porter, "he doesn't belong here, but that doesn't make any difference. I'll take him to Mr. Oatmeal. He's a very good vet, and he doesn't live far from here." He picked the Dachshund up gently in his arms and went out of the hotel with him. Oscar did not utter a word, even when Chris had handed him over to the vet, and Mr. Oatmeal had laid him on a white table. He only gazed sadly in front of him. Every time he moved the least bit, his tail hurt so badly that he thought he would never be able to walk another step in his life. "Here's a nice thing," said Mr. Oatmeal. "You know, you Dachshunds always have to push your noses into everything. Then you're apt to forget about your tails." He examined Oscar carefully and pressed his tail about, so that Oscar whined aloud a few times. Then he went over to a cupboard where rows of knives and scissors gleamed in the sun beside the bottles and jars. "Please don't cut it off," cried Oscar in alarm, and tried to run away. "Don't worry, it's not as bad as all that," said the vet. "You've been lucky this time. Nothing's broken, but you were not far off it. Now a little ointment and a bandage, and then we can let you go again." He fetched a jar of ointment and then bound Oscar's tail up in a long white bandage. "You are a handsome Dachshund, and now you're even more handsome with that fine bandage," laughed the vet. "Now tell me, where do you come from?" Oscar took a deep breath and sat up carefully. Then he told how he had gone out for a walk with his new collar the day before, and how he had lost it when he was being chased by the big dogs. Tears ran down his cheeks again when he said, "And now my young master is all alone at home, but I can't go home without my collar. Willie spent all his savings on it. What will he think of a Dachshund who loses such a valuable present on the very first day?" "What are you going to do next?" asked the vet. "I must find the cows I traveled with in the railway truck," answered Oscar. "I'm sure Lisa will know where the collar is, but the cows have gone to some mountain pastures to make lots of milk, and I don't know where the pastures are." "The cows that arrived yesterday, did you say?" asked Mr. Oatmeal. "I went and saw them myself at the station. You see, when new cows come up to the Alps, I always have to make sure they are really sound and well. The cows you mean went up to the pastures at Fir Tree Alp yesterday." "Then I must go straight to Fir Tree Alp too," cried Oscar, leaping down from the table. At once he yelped, "Ow, ow!" He collapsed on the ground and rolled his eyes. "You silly thing," said Mr. Oatmeal. "You mustn't go jumping and hopping about yet a while. Now you stay quiet and rest for a day. Then, if it doesn't hurt tomorrow morning, we'll see whether you can go up to the pastures." He wished the Dachshund the best of luck. "I do hope you'll find your friend Lisa again, and your collar too, very soon. If there is anything else you need, just come and ask me." "Thank you, Mr. Oatmeal, sir," said Oscar. "Now I'll soon be better again. I'll tell my Master Willie all about how kind you have been to me." Oscar walked carefully out of the vet's house and made his way back to the big hotel. "Hello, Oscar," the porter called out to him as he came up. "How did you get on?" "Badly and well," said the Dash Hound. "It hurt awfully, but tomorrow morning I can definitely go up to Fir Tree Alp. Maybe I will go some of the way today. Then I won't have so far to go tomorrow. I feel much better already." "Rubbish!" exclaimed the porter. "It's much too late to set out today. Go to the kitchen and the cook will give you some lunch. Then come back here and tell me how you came to Upchurch in the first place." Oscar went to the kitchen, ate up a whole plateful of meat and macaroni, and drank a bowl of milk. Then he dragged a big marrow bone out into the backyard. Chris was sitting in the yard in a deck chair, enjoying his after-lunch rest in the sun. Oscar told him why he had come to Upchurch and all about what had happened to him. "Now spend the night here like a good dog," said Chris. "Tomorrow I'll put you on your way. Then you will get to your friend Lisa soon enough. I'm sure you'll find your collar all right and get back to your Master Willie again, so don't you worry one bit." Chapter 7. Help Burglars. The sun went slowly down behind the mountains. All afternoon Oscar had lazed about on the lawn, snapping at flies. Even lazing about makes one hungry. Oscar was glad when Chris came into the garden and said, "Well, old feller me lad, come along and get it." They went together to the kitchen, and the cook ladled out another big plate full of food for Oscar. Oscar sniffed and wagged his bandaged tail. "Roast meat and rice and peas. Not bad at all," he said, and soon he had licked the plate clean. "Have you had enough?" asked the cook. "How about some nice vanilla ice cream for our poor invalid?" "I'm not ill any more," replied Oscar. "Haven't you noticed I can wag my tail again, a little bit? But I'd like the vanilla cream very much, all the same, please." The porter was eating in the kitchen too, and when he had finished his coffee, he took Oscar out to a shed behind the hotel. Next to the shed stood a big dog kennel. "You can sleep here," he said. "The kennel used to belong to Barry, the St. Bernard. He died last winter." "Was he very ill?" asked Oscar, "or was he run over by a car?" "No, neither. He was terribly old, and he had hardly any teeth left," the porter told him. "One morning we simply found him dead, and we buried him at the bottom of the garden. Look, we kept his cushion. I've put it in the kennel for you for tonight." "That's lovely, thank you very much," said the Dash Hound. "I shall sleep like a log here." The evening bell began to ring from the church tower, and gradually it grew dark. Oscar crawled into his kennel. "What a day it's been," he yawned. "First the to-do with the cleaner, and then nearly losing my tail in the lift. Well, at least I've something to tell Willie about when I get home again. Now I must just find that collar. Tomorrow, when I find Lisa, she'll tell me where it is all right." Thinking these thoughts, Oscar fell peacefully asleep. Oscar had no idea how long he had been asleep. He looked out the little door of the kennel. It was still pitch dark. What can have woken me up? I'm still dead tired, he thought, and started turning over onto his other side. Suddenly he lay still. What was that? A soft whispering was coming from the shed. There were two men talking to each other. They must be standing right behind the kennel. Yes, it's the corner room, that end window. They've got masses of money, those people. They must have, with a car like that. You saw it too, didn't you, when they arrived this morning? What had I better do then? Shall I come with you? Asked the other man. No, you stand over there by the corner, said the first man, and if anyone comes, whistle twice. Is that clear? Yes, fine, but do you really think they won't wake up? There are 4 of them, the parents and 2 children. Let me worry about that. They'll be worn out after their journey and fast asleep. If one of them does wake up, I'll be out of the window and down the ladder in a moment. And we're away. In any case, I've got the pistol with me. Oscar's heart was beating loudly. What a thing to happen! These 2 were burglars, and they were going to climb up a ladder into the room belonging to the visitors who had arrived that morning. The man with the car and the lady and the 2 children were going to have all their money stolen in the middle of the night. What ought I to do? Oscar asked himself. If I run straight off and find Chris, the thieves will see me and shoot me dead, but I can't just sit here and do nothing. Then cautious footsteps crunched on the gravel. Right, we're off, said one of the men. I'm taking the ladder, and you go and wait over there. And mind you keep a good lookout. If there's danger, 2 whistles. Got it. The 2 men were now quite close to the kennel where Oscar was. Wait, one of them whispered suddenly. There's a dog. Look, that kennel. Oscar held his breath. If they discovered him now, there would be no chance of escape. For a moment, there was a deathly silence. Then the other man whispered, Don't worry, I had a look this morning. There's no dog in it. Now come on, and don't be so jittery. The men moved away. One of them slunk through the garden, carrying the ladder, bent double among the dark bushes. The other tiptoed cautiously across the yard and disappeared behind a bit of wall that was sticking out a little way. Now it's high time I went and woke Chris, thought Oscar. He's sure to know how to deal with burglars. He crept out of his kennel, slipped along to the next house, under cover of a low wall, and then ran in a wide curve to the front of the hotel. He looked round him. All was quiet. The burglars had not seen him. There was not a soul in the road, and all the hotel windows were dark. Oscar bounded up the steps and pushed against the big door. It was locked. Then he began scratching at the door. Nothing moved inside the hotel. Aha! A bell, thought Oscar. What did Willie teach me to ring front door bells for? He jumped up at the door and snapped at the brass handle. The bell clanged briefly. Oh, help! The whole motel must have woken up with that noise, thought Oscar, but nothing moved. This is dreadful, he sighed. There is a burglar climbing into the hotel, and no one will wake up. I must have a quick look and see if he's up yet. He crept carefully along the wall to the end of the hotel and peeped round the corner. There he saw the man, on the point of standing the ladder up against the window. Oscar rushed back to the front door. He had to get Chris out of bed, whatever happened. Once more he jumped up at the bell handle. Once more the bell pealed through the hotel, and Oscar waited a long time. At last the door was opened a little crack. "What is it?" asked a sleepy voice. "Chris, it's me," called Oscar softly. "Let me in." "Goodness gracious, whatever are you doing here?" grumbled Chris. "If the dog kennel isn't good enough for you, you can jolly well go somewhere else." And click, the door closed. "Chris, Chris," pleaded Oscar, but the door stayed shut. Oscar was nearly crying in his anxiety. He scratched at the door again, and he rang the bell. It was no use. "I've got to wake somebody," he thought desperately. Then he noticed an open window on the ground floor. He made up his mind, took a run, and leapt up the wall. But his run had been too hard. Oscar slipped straight off the other side of the window-sill, and fell into the middle of the room. "What's that?" cried a voice. "Oh, so you sleep here, do you, Chris?" Oscar asked in a whisper. "Oh, for goodness sake, get out," groaned Chris. "I thought you were quite a decent little Dachshund, and now—" Oscar did not let him finish. "And now there are burglars in the house," he said. "Burglars?" cried Chris, jumping out of bed. "You must have been dreaming." "Come and see for yourself," Oscar insisted. "But there's not really time for that now. One burglar is already up in the room where the new visitors are. If you go up there, he'll shoot you dead." Now at last Chris really woke up, and Oscar had to tell him what he had seen and heard. "Well, I'm blowed," said Chris. "They must be the same two who broke in last week in the next village. They nearly shot the policeman there. What shall we do?" "I'd say catch the burglars," said Oscar, "but the visitors ought not to be alarmed, and the burglars must not shoot anyone." He thought it over for a minute. "I think I know," he said. "First of all, we'll chase off the man who is keeping watch below. That can be my job. He is standing over there under the second window. I'll jump out of the window onto his head and bite him. He'll get such a fright that he'll run away." "But the other one," said the porter. "He's robbing the visitors this very minute, and if we make a noise, he'll shoot us all." "That's just it," said Oscar. "We mustn't make any noise. You stand just round the corner by the ladder. When this man over here runs away, you whistle twice. That's the signal that they arranged if the man inside is to come down again. And then, when that burglar is on the ladder, you come along and tip the ladder over. The man will fall to the ground, and you can catch hold of him." "But what if he uses that pistol and shoots?" asked Chris, who did not like the sound of it all. "He won't do that," Oscar reassured him. "I'll come at once and take his pistol away, and by that time the policeman will be here. You can ring him up now. Hurry up." "What a wonderful fellow you are," said Chris. He had been getting dressed in the meantime, and now he went to the telephone. "Well, I was sound asleep, and you have woken me up," said the policeman, "but I'll come at once."